Welcome to the Kinetic Belief Podcast with me, Paul Canyon. I'm so excited to champion and encourage you every week, right here.
Pushing the boundaries of expectations and rewriting the rules of adventure are the reasons we get up in the morning. This is a way of life, a huge and growing community of explorers and adventurers, leading the way, blazing new trails, and raising the bar. We share your hunger for a life without limits, and we know you'll stop at nothing to get there.
And now, Paul Canyon.
Well, hi, Meg. It's good to see you again.
Hi, Paul. How are you
I'm
today?
doing great, thanks. How have you been?
Really good.
Good. You ready to talk about life without limits today?
I'm ready to talk about how to get rich.
Rich.
Very rich.
Yeah, that's a good word. I love the word rich.
Yes.
Who doesn't want to be rich?
Well, you know.
Lots of people.
Well, then why isn't everyone rich?
Well, yeah, isn't that amazing, though, when you say that? You know, first of all, I think probably most of our listeners are going, are you kidding me? I want to be rich. Who doesn't want to be rich? And actually, it's interesting that there are a lot of people that are afraid of becoming wealthy, of being rich. There's a fear that comes with it. And
I'm not one of those people.
I didn't think you were. In fact, I know you're not.
I'm not afraid of some money.
Yeah,
No.
well, but you know what? There's nothing magical about becoming wealthy. There are a lot of things that will prevent people from becoming rich. And in fact, the law of kinetic belief, one of the books that I've written and a study that I have been involved in for a number of years, unveils the truth behind what it is required to become rich. And not just in this country, because a lot of times when I'm talking to people about becoming rich, they think that, well, I've got to be in Chicago, New York. I need to be in America. I've got to do this. I've got to be in a certain location. And none of that's true. It absolutely is not true. So there are a lot of things that play into someone becoming wealthy, becoming rich, that are not obvious, and yet these qualities are available and accessible by everybody.
I do know that there are many negative connotations that have been put on wealth, on getting rich. A lot of guilt. A lot of people like to say you have too much. You have too much for yourself.
Isn't that amazing? Isn't that amazing? And you know something else? It's always the people that don't have it
That's true.
that talk about how it's bad to have it.
That's
Yet
true.
I'll guarantee you, if you were to write a check for $1 million and offer it to anyone who's complaining about the people that are rich, they'd be more than happy to
That's
take
true.
it. And if you don't want it, and you think that there's a problem with it, take it and give it away, or spread it out, or do whatever you feel like is required of that money. But I do want to talk about becoming rich, and it is in how vital it is to the success-oriented individual on planet Earth today to be rich. And first of all, one of the things you've already brought up, Megan, is that there is nothing at all, contrary to a lot of popular opinion, there is nothing wrong with being rich. In fact, a life without limits requires that you be rich. And to become rich is not a selfish pursuit. It does not have to be selfish. For the person that is creative-minded, not competitive, but creative-minded, being rich in this world will provide you with all of the necessary resources in order to go in and seek after the very thing that brings you happiness and joy. And you can travel to the places you want to travel to, drive the car you want to drive, live in the house that you want to live in, give to the things that you want to give to. All of the things that you feel like are a heart's desire require money.
Yep.
And so the first thing that I tell people to do is to get rid of the notion right now that there's something wrong with being rich. And I'll tell you, one of the biggest things that comes up when I'm talking and in one of our conferences is the guilt comes from the belief that there's only so much to go around. And if I'm rich, then I'm taking away from somebody else. And the interesting thing about that is, again, it's misinformation. And people have bought into the lie that there's a limited amount of resources to go around to where you can only have so many wealthy people on the earth. That's just
Wow.
not true.
No, wow, that's good.
It's not true at all. There is more than enough for everybody, anybody that wants to be rich, to be rich.
And I can see how these mindsets, undoing these perspectives and this posturing where money's concerned, is absolutely the first step to accumulating a lot of wealth.
Well, it is, because if you have any fear, fear is the opposite of belief or faith. Fear is a belief, but it's the opposite of desiring something. And what happens is if you are in fear of a thing, fear will cause you to fight or flight. And so there is a substance that we are attracting through a law of attraction when we believe for something. And if we're fearful of that thing, then the same thing is happening, but it's a contradiction to attraction. It's pushing it away. So if you have any root of fear within you where riches are concerned, then, and you've heard people talk about how I just always sabotage myself as soon as I'm about to become successful. And what's happening is that fear rooted within them is repulsing. It's driving away the very thing that maybe at one time they were hoping they could somehow achieve. So you have to get rid of those fears and recognize them for what they are.
That seems like it would take a really sort of a dig deep kind of moment to overcome that fear, because you can sense that something that you really desire is in your grasp, and that fear is going to want to kick in to make you think, gosh, what if I don't get it? What if it doesn't happen?
You have a right to a life without limits. You have a right to that, to fully enjoy this life. You have a right to be able to express yourself in any way that you want to express yourself. And so it's like, it's the same thing as saying, you know what, you are okay, and learn to love yourself. That's where so many people struggle today, is in the permission to love themselves and to believe that they are okay just like they are. Becoming rich is the same thing. It comes with a lot of guilt unless you, like you said, dig down and understand that you are actually operating with a sense of guilt or fear that needs to be dug out so that you are then open and ready to receive love for yourself, riches for yourself, a full life, and a life without limitation.
Sounds like you're saying you really have to get your back up and get almost upset.
I like that. That's a good way to look at
when
it.
fear tries to show up to really steal from you.
Fear is a negative, and negativity comes from so many different sources. It comes from friends and family, first and foremost. That's probably the biggest source of fear for everybody, is you have what I call border bullies. And those are the people that have positioned themselves in your life that maybe you grew up with, you went to school with, college with, your friends, so-called friends. Often they'll be the first people to tell you that you can't do something or you shouldn't do something, or what so many people like to do is to run an idea of a passion that they have across their best friend or with their best friend to see what their reaction is going to be. Well, first of all, it doesn't really matter. Typically, your closest friend, they don't have your passion. They don't have your heart. There's no other person like any one person on this planet. You are singularly unique. Every single person is, with their own giftings, with their own desires, with their own purpose. And so once we are able to locate within ourselves that purpose for existing, that purpose for life, for living a life without limitations, and by that I mean living a life where you have riches to pursue whatever the Creator has placed on the inside of you, guilt-free. There's nothing wrong with having as much money as you can possibly imagine and have a plan for using for your own enrichment and for the betterment of the people that you do love and care for, and your family, and other things that might appeal to you to change and make the world a better place. And to do that will require that you be rich. And rich comes with being guilt-free about being rich.
Wow, I love that. I want to pop back to something you started with when you were talking about becoming rich. You mentioned the competitive versus the creative. Can you expound on what you mean by that a little bit?
Sure, and what I mean by that is the universe, everything that we see, and this is amazing. What I'm about to tell you.
I'm ready.
And if you are listening to this podcast for the first time, put your seatbelt on.
Okay.
Do whatever pull off to the side of the road, get ready, because I'm going to blow your mind right now.
Okay.
And are you ready?
Wow, you have set this one up.
All right, here it is. Just over a half a century ago, a physicist by the name of Peter Higgs, with pen and paper, wrote out a theory of creation. There he was in Scotland, and he wrote this out in longhand. Fast forward to 2012, and some of the listeners may be familiar with something that's called a particle collider that was constructed, and this particle collider was a joint effort of many, many nations. Billions of dollars constructed this collider. The purpose of the collider was to collide particles together at almost the speed of light, and in the wreckage of those particles to observe, to see what happens. Well, Megan, what they discovered, 3,000 researchers were there for the unveiling of the discovery. They discovered something that's called a God particle that exists throughout the entire universe. It's the something between, it's the nothing between the somethings. It's the matter that cannot be seen, the God particle. And what they discovered is that this God particle, or the substance of belief, is the very thing that is responsible for giving everything that we see its shape. All of the planets, all of the stars, you, me, this couch, the oceans, everything that we see is made up of the same particles. When you get down to quantum physics, the very smallest of particles, we're made up of the same stuff. Then why do you look and act? Why are you different than me? And why is this couch different than you? And all the things that there are. Well, what they discovered is that, and this is freaking them out. Even right now, this is 2012, and there's still, some have stuck their heads in the sand. Others are some are writing books, and some have just disappeared. Wow. But here's what they discovered, is that before the Big Bang, that everybody's heard about, before the Big Bang, there was a creative consciousness. There was a master plan for all that there is, so that there was a blueprint. There was a belief, a blueprint behind creation. Now, there's a lot of conjecture, and the arguments and the debates now are, of course, was that a deity? How did that happen? Who was that? Who was the designer? And all of that is certainly open for discussion. However, without a doubt, there is a plan to all that there is. Now, what is unique about understanding this is when you begin to overlay some of the world's methods for design, creation, the avatars for the last 2,000 years here on planet Earth that have accomplished great things. The masters of art, the super athletes, those that have accumulated great wealth, have all done this one thing in common, and that is through the law of kinetic belief, adhering to and relying on a belief for a certain thing, have been able to attract or bring that thing into their lives. And the way that they do this is they first create the vision. They know exactly what it is that they want. And then through the power of belief and holding on to that, the universal substance of things that are hoped for, which is evidence of things not yet seen, begins to create the very thing that is hoped for.
Wow.
This is a universal law of kinetic belief. Just like gravity, it works for you whether you believe it or not. And we are all believers, and we all use the same substance to create heart's desire.
Wow, isn't that beautiful? It's almost like it's the science behind the law of attraction.
That's exactly what it is. That is, if you've heard of the law of attraction, that's how it works. It's not a genie in a bottle where your wish is my command. However, the substance of belief works for you when you are adhering to and relying on the very thing that you are believing for and not wavering. The kinetic part of that is in the not wavering, not listening to the negative ideas, not listening to somebody's opinion or thought that they want to tell you you can't make it, or anything that's negative. You want to shut all of that information out and remain positive and grateful that you already have it, seeing it already done right now in your life, and then you conjure those emotions and those feelings up every day as though you already have the very thing that you are imagining.
Wow.
And that imagination will then manifest itself into the reality and to the realm of your own existence.
Wow. So you are really talking about using this information about the God particle so that you can speak things into existence, but in a way to where you know exactly what you're activating.
That's right. And that's key, knowing exactly what it is that you're activating or what you are believing for. And the way that I encourage people to do this is to create a vision board. Know exactly what it is. If it's money, because that's what we're talking about, becoming rich, well, how much money? What is rich to you? What does that mean? And don't limit the universe. Don't limit the substance of things hoped for, because it is there for you to use for your satisfaction and for your happiness and peace and enjoyment. So don't put limitations. In fact, the only limitations that there are ever on the substance of things hoped for come from within us.
I love that. I love the vision board idea. It almost feels like a little spiritual cheat sheet. So that, because sometimes you can't quite see those details of what you're believing for. So to just be able to pop in there and look at it and recognize the details of what your heart's desire is, remembering what you're believing for is awesome. I love that.
It's a house. If it's winning the Super Bowl, if that's the position in life that you're in, or whatever it is that you're desiring, create a vision board and then print off a copy of something that looks like exactly what you're imagining, and then keep that before your eyes like a phylactery that the Jews, thousands of years ago would do. They would keep certain things before their eyes by keeping the actual physical image of that right where they could see it all the time. And then reference it every day. And don't let it slip out of your mind and your thought. Keep focusing on that, and you will attract, without a doubt, the very thing that you're hoping for.
There are a lot of opportunities out there that people offer up to make money, to, quote, get rich. What do you think is one of the best opportunities out there right now for getting rich?
Well, you see, that's a great question, and that actually upends what a lot of people will talk about and go to seminars for. They're looking for the best opportunity, which then goes right back to one of the things that you brought up earlier on, Megan, and that is that you create with creativity rather than through competition. And when you ask the question, what is the best opportunity, where are you going with that? To competition. Opportunity promotes competition. It means, let me just tell you, the problem with being competitively minded is it promotes the idea that there's not enough for everybody.
Oh, wow, I see.
That's like saying there's only one trophy, yet there are two of us in a race. And so I'm going to compete with you to be able to get the trophy that you also want. But what the law of attraction or the law of kinetic belief has proven is that there are enough trophies for everybody, for everyone. And so rather than being competitively minded, we switch that gear over to becoming creatively minded, because to be creative in whatever the purpose is that you have in your own life, to become creative is to be sensitive to who you are as an individual and what your unique giftings are, and then sharpen those and think in terms of how can I help my fellow man? How can I give unto other people without the thought of taking something from them that belongs to them, either through coercion or beating them to it or competing with them,
Yeah.
because you have to understand that where there is no fear, there is a belief that there is plenty for everybody. And that is the truth. And this is something that the one percenters, which have been uniquely present since the history of mankind, there's always been about a 1% that have understood
Yep.
these principles that we're talking about. And this is how we spread that 1%.
So you're all about expanding the 1%.
Yeah,
I like
absolutely.
that. I like that.
Yeah, that's right. And it's not been 1% because there's only enough for 1%. That is not the case at all. There's more than enough in this universe.
That's revelation to me, because I never even thought about the idea that a huge part of getting rich is believing that there's enough to go around, that there's more than enough for everyone.
And it's something that's a great point, because this is something that's not unique just to 2019. If you'll go back and read some of the newspapers from 1900, 1910, 1870, and 80, they were talking about the very same things that
Wow.
that society here in America talks about today. Well, the banks are out to get you. There's not enough for everybody. The Rockefellers are hoarding it all, and they're not paying people enough, and all these things, and that historically is the same kind of topics that we talk about now. But what people need to realize is that there's more good in the world than there is bad, and there is more opportunity than there is not opportunity. And for those that are willing to love themselves, to believe in themselves, and to aspire to do great things, my advice, first of all, is for you to determine that you are ready to get rich. And I mean rich. Not just having enough money to pay my bills. That's all I want. I'm not greedy. We're not talking about greed. We're not talking about selfishness. I'm talking about becoming rich so that you can promote the essence of who you are and be an example for other people, that they too can become rich and be someone that can love other people and help other people and show up just in time and be generous if you want to be generous. But you've got to focus on all of these good qualities in order to begin to attract that wealth that we're talking about. Keep focusing on it. Be grateful for who you are, grateful for the things that you now have. You don't have to go somewhere else to start. You start right where you are, and you start today. If you think that there are still some limitations based on where you are or what you're doing, you're still not ready. You start where you are, and you start today, and you begin to become rich. It's that simple. It really is.
So the $10 million question is, if I start applying kinetic belief today, how long do I have to wait to see it manifest, to see it show up?
Well, another good question. First of all, it's changing the mindset that there is a time limit on becoming wealthy or becoming rich. Because as soon as you start the process, through the law of kinetic belief of becoming rich, at that very moment, right now today, you're rich. And with the idea, when you start to feel like you're rich, you consider yourself to be rich, you walk like you are, you're carrying yourself the same way, your belief mechanism is activating all of the substance that's required to attract that wealth in your life. You start then doing things that lead to the riches. The phone begins to ring, you get calls, there's interactions that just happen to come into your life. Doors are opened and some others are closed, and you step into this stream, this river that begins to move you into the direction of acquiring those riches that you're believing for and hoping for. And I would just say that when you can truly get to that place and realize that you're willing to stand forever for those riches, it's at that point that you'll never stand for long.
I love that. And something that really just spoke to me, what you were saying is that the focus is on the riches. The focus is on the wealth that you are receiving, instead of on the poverty that you don't want to have. You're not anti-poverty, you're pro being rich.
That's exactly right.
I like that.
That's right. It has nothing to do with poverty, nothing to do with lack, nothing at all to do with the fear of anything. In fact, all of that, you've checked it, you've gotten rid of it, you keep it out of your life, out of your thoughts.
Wow.
Don't read negative reports, don't watch negative television, negative anything. Get all of that fear-based negativity out of your life, friends, information, whatever it is that you habitually consume. You have to get rid of all of that. And you begin to reprogram your thoughts and expectations according to positivity and focus on whatever the wealth, whatever the riches are that you are determined to have in your life. You keep that before your eyes and in your thoughts and in your mind and on your vision board, and you believe for it. And you feel like you already have it. And then ideas will come to you. People will come to you. Those thoughts necessary to attract the very thing you're believing for will come to you. And it is an amazing thing. And you have a right to it. Understand that, believe it, and determine that no matter what, you're going to become rich.
Wow. Well, this half hour has flown by. I cannot believe how quick this went. That's amazing.
It really has, hasn't it?
So if someone's listening to the podcast and they want to attend the Life Without Limits conference that you hold, how would they go about finding it and attending?
Oh, I hope they do come. I mean, we have the best time at a Life Without Limits conferences. And we've got one coming up, and I think that the next one is going to be in Fort Lauderdale,
Okay.
Florida, and that's coming up in September.
Wonderful.
And so, hey, if we've got anybody in the area down there, or even if outside of the area, make plans to travel. And
Awesome.
come on down to Fort Lauderdale.
They're always dynamic. It's worth the trip.
Absolutely is.
Okay, wonderful. Well, I want to continue talking about getting rich next time as well. We did not even get, I just don't even think we barely cracked the surface.
You know, one of the most challenging things for myself, Megan, is when we start talking about this, there's such a broad stroke that we need to paint with, first of all, to get down to the nitty-gritty details
That's so
of it.
true. Well, we will get to the nitty-gritty next time. I like
it.
that.
Yeah.
Okay, well, it's great seeing you.
You too. Thanks,
Have
Meg.
a wonderful week.
Okay, bye.